hand. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another podcast episode 365 Money Heist, where all I do in this small part of the channel, right? If you're watching on YouTube, and it's big part of the main aim if you're streaming on Spotify, is sit you through life-changing books, right? Books that carry with them absolutely important must-know knowledge. You only know what you know, because what you know affects your level of operation. If you know less, you operate at a very low capacitated level. The more you know, the better your area of operation, the more you can create. We are creators and not competitors, according to the last book we did, which is our season 1. So if you don't know yet, please do check out the previous season of the podcast. We already finished one book in 10 days in the month of January. Just to be clear, when I do these books, I'm not giving you a summary. I'm not giving you what I think, a review, a reflection. I don't believe in that noodles, a microwave bake type knowledge, 2-minute noodle knowledge, and then everything is going to be fine. I am going through the book with you word for word, right? So all my babies are awake and they don't want to sleep. So I'm in a different room today as I record this on the other side of the house, just to get some peace and quiet, right? But for the most part, I appreciate all of you. A big shout out before we even start. A shout out to everyone who's listened to the podcast in South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, United Kingdom, Turkey, Botswana, and Finland. That is insane. I appreciate all of you. Naturally, there could be more people who watch and follow on the podcast on the YouTube channel, but these are just the stats from Spotify, right? So I appreciate all of you. Yesterday, I was low energy, and I have to be honest, man. I was low energy. My knee was sore. I hurt myself in the morning during my training session, and then I was slightly, induced with the pain meds, right? So I was a bit sluggish. I could feel myself. I wasn't that present. So I had to reread the chapter for myself early this morning. And I just want to quickly give you a quick summary of the notes I put together. They've already become, the description notes on yesterday's episode. They're also the description notes on yesterday's episode on Spotify, just so that we are all on the same page, right? So a couple of things that were a key highlight and a massive importance on chapter 2 of the book. Remember, in chapter 1, two best friends meet and they're not happy about their financial situation. They're not happy about where they are in life. And then they remember that their best buddy, when they were growing up, has become the richest person in Babylon or Babylon, right? I'm going to keep mixing up those words again tonight. I apologize in advance. Now, as they journey towards going to sit down with their old childhood friend to actually ask, what is the secret behind your wealth? How did you become wealthy when we grew up together? When we pretty much, there was nothing particularly different about all three of us when we were growing up. How did you become the richest man in the richest city? Right, and you will already know if you're a loyal follower of the podcast, you will know that in season 1 or book 1, we looked at the science of getting rich, which specifically talks about a certain way of doing things, like a certain way of thinking, a certain way of mental articulation, a certain way of honing and harvesting those desires and pursuing goals, a certain way of making sure that all those steps are met. And he starts off with that. He actually starts off with a clear plan, a deep desire for what you want, etc. But in chapter 2, when they're now having their first conversation, Arkad, the friend, tells them a story of how he started on his journey to creating the wealth that he has. And I guess that's our starting point. And he said, look, man, first principle that took him 4 years to master, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. And that was me saying they were introducing what we call the 10% rule. 10% of everything that comes your way to your pocket must immediately be you paying yourself into the future by making sure that that 10% is attached to an investment or a money investment vehicle that will get your money working for you, right? And I don't want to get into what those are right now, all right? Because financially speaking, my channel fundamentally is around trading, is around the financial markets, whether it be Forex, bonds market, equities market, options market, crypto market. I pretty much teach people people how to do that. But there are other means, right, of putting 10% into, like, as long as you understand that a part of all you earn is yours to keep. And that is the first rule of this religion of wealth creation, right? So then then just a couple of quotes that I picked up. If you've not acquired more than a bare existence, he was telling this to his friends, in the years since we were youths, it is because you either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you do not observe them, right? So in his mind, there are two options of why people end up where they are. Either they don't know, because you only know what you know and you operate at that level of knowledge, right? So he says, either you fail to learn the laws that govern, right, the building of wealth, which is what this podcast is about, so that you will not fail to learn. We will cover every single lesson around it. Or you get a place where you now know them, but you fail to not operate at that level of knowledge, which is what he meant by, or else you do not observe them, right? So you don't observe the things that you're learning. And then the summary of chapter 2 yesterday, so that we can get into today's chapter, was here are the 3 steps before you get to the 10% rule, before you can even get to a part of all you earn is yours to keep. There are certain things, practical things that you need to have in place as you begin your journey to wealth building. Number 1, live upon less. We know that it's an old saying, but very few people actually apply it in their lives, right? If this is your income bracket, your lifestyle is here. You need to create the 10%. You need to be okay with whatever you're earning, you take 10% away. And we can get into social economic conversations. I'm big on those things. I understand capitalism is unjust, unruly, vicious, cruel. I understand that most people belong to a big group called the working class, where they are crucified for existing, where every single time they put a meal on their table, it is actually through the pure sacrifice of their human body and soul. It's called exploitation. I understand that, but I'm saying to you, while we may wish to overhaul and change the current system as it is, between now and then, if it doesn't change, for example, the generation before you that probably also want to change but got to live and die where before change came, between now and then, what you need to be thinking about is how to also sustain yourself in this completely unfair ecosystem called capitalism. And the 10% rule is the beginning of that. Live upon less than you earn. Number 2, seek advice from those who are competent through their own experiences to give it. So not everyone can help you, particularly in what it is that you need to do if they're not competent in that, right? And the example was, he started doing the 10% rule, then you would go and invest those 10% from the advice of a brick maker. And his mentor came back and said, but dude, that guy is an expert in brick making. He's not an expert in growing your investment. So you lost those investments because you were not seeking advice from those who were competent, right? And then number 3, lastly, you have learned to make your gold work for you, which is the golden 10% rule. Make your money work for you. All right. So that's kind of like a recap. And I do apologize for yesterday's episode. The episode, I'm happy it happened, but I am a very big critic of myself sometimes, and it's important to maintain a certain level of standard, right, in that efficient manner of executing things. The book is already a little bit difficult to read given its old English, and so that and just slogginess really doesn't make a good combination, right? So today we're only going to do one chapter again, because the chapters are actually quite sizable, number 1. Number 2, they're littered with so many practical steps, right? So by the time you're done reading this book, if you're like me, and I'm happy to share this if you request it and you want it completely for free, I will give you a step-by-step note process of what I think needs to happen. Remember, this book was given to me by my old man. I read in episode 1 of the book literally since I was 13 years old, and I'm still in that process of being a full follower and disciple of it. It is extremely packed, right? So chapter 3 is 7 cures of a lean purse. 7 cures of a lean purse, 7 cures of a tiny purse, right? Remember, it's Old English. It's located in the old city of Babylon. The author, brilliant. I must say, George Clarkson was quite brilliant in the way he framed this entire story and the way he frames this wealth building secrets around these characters. But he also uses a whole lot of Old English to fit the context, which is not my strength. But Discipline requires us to just sit through this and finish the chapter and get what we may. Right. So already, let's get started. The 7 cures for a lean purse. The 7 cures for a lean purse. Right. It's really a nice, thick, sizable chapter. We're going to be together for a while. Now, the glory of Babylon endures. Down through the ages, its reputation comes to us as the richest of cities, its treasures as fabulous. Yet it was not always so. The riches of Babylon were results of wisdom of its people. They first had to learn how to become wealthy. When the good king Sargon returned to Babylon after defeating his enemies, the Elamites, he was confronted with a serious situation. The royal chancellor explained it to the king thus: after many years of great prosperity brought to our people because your majesty built the great irrigation canals and the mighty temples of the gods, now that these works were completed, the people seem unable to support themselves. The laborers are without employment, the merchants have few customers, the farmers are unable to sell their produce, the people have not enough gold to buy food. But where is all the gold gone that we spent for these great improvements? Demanded the king. It has found its way, I fear, responded the chancellor, into the possession of a few very rich men of our city. It filtered through the fingers of most of our people as quickly as goat milk goes through the strainer. Now that the stream of gold has ceased to flow, most of our people have nothing to show for their earnings. The king was thoughtful for some time. Then he asked, why should so few men be able to acquire all the gold? Because they know how, replied the chancellor. Not one may not condemn a man for succeeding because he knows how. Neither may one with justice take away from a man what he has fairly earned to give to men of less ability. But why? Demanded the king. Should not all people learn how to accumulate gold and therefore become themselves rich and prosperous? Quite possible, Your Excellence, but who can teach them? Certainly not the priests, because they know not of money making. Who knows best in all our city how to become wealthy, Chancellor? Asked the king. Thy question answers itself, Your Majesty. Who has amassed the greatest wealth in Babylon? I mean, it's really re-emphasizing, again, point number 2 from yesterday. Seek advice from those who were competent through their own experiences to give it. All right, so he's saying, look, man, why don't you just ask the wealthiest people in Babylon? Well said, my able chancellor. It is Akkad. He is the richest man in Babylon. Bring him before me on the morrow. Upon the following day, as the king had decreed, Akkad appeared before him, straight and sprightly despite his 70 years and 10. Akkad spoke, the king. It is true thou art the richest man in Babylon. So it is reported, Your Majesty, and no man disputes it. How becomest thou so wealthy? By taking advantages of opportunities available to all citizens of our good city. Thou hast nothing to start with, only a great desire for wealth. Besides this, nothing. Guys, it's quite crazy. Every single book we're going to go through almost starts like this. Science of Getting Rich, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, 16 Laws of Success, Bob Proctor's book, L. Nightingale, all these guys, Dr. Joseph Murphy, the 7 Cures of the Mind, all of them are really curating the creation of the life you want upon the starting concept of actually desiring it, right? A lot of people don't take too much thought into it. You know, L. Nightingale in the 1920s said, the greatest crime now is that men refuse to think. Like, you think you're thinking, but you're not really thinking. And if you read The Science of Getting Rich, we actually now know exactly what it means to think and how to think. Right, we have to be obsessed about what we're thinking about. And he says, look, man, the only thing, right, thou hast nothing to start with, only a desire for wealth. Besides this, nothing. All right, Akkad continued, the king, our city is in a very unhappy state because a few men know how to acquire wealth and therefore monopolize it, while the mass of our citizens lack the knowledge of how to keep any part of gold they receive. It is my desire that Babylon be the wealthiest city in the world. Therefore, it must be a city of many wealthy men. Therefore, we must teach all the people how to acquire riches. Tell me, Akkad, is there any secret in acquiring wealth? Can it be taught? It is practical, Your Majesty, that which one man knows can be taught to others. The king's eyes glowed. Akkad, thou speakest the words I wish to hear. Wilt thou lend thyself to this great cause? Wilt thou teach thy knowledge to a school of teachers, each of whom shall teach others until they are enough trained to teach these truths to every worthy subject in my domain? Akkad bowed and said, I am thy humble servant to command. Whatever knowledge I possess, I will gladly give for the betterment of my fellow men and the glory of my king. Let your good chancellor arrange for me a class of 100 men, and I will teach them those 7 cures which did fatten my purse, than which there was none learner in all of Babylon. A fortnight later, in compliance with the king's command, the chosen 100 assembled in the great hall of the temple of learning, seated upon colorful rings in a semicircle. Akkad sat besides a small tabot upon which smoked a sacred lamp, sending forth a strange and pleasing odor. Behold, the richest man in Babylon, whispered a student, nudging his neighbor as Akkad arose. He is but a man, even as the rest of us. As dutiful subject of our king, Akkad began, I stand before you in his service because once I was a poor youth who did greatly desire gold, and because I found that enabled me to acquire it, he asks that I impart upon you my knowledge. I started my fortune in the humblest way. I had no advantage, not enjoyed as fully by you and every citizen in Babylon. The first storehouse of my treasure was a well-worn purse. I loathed its useless emptiness. I desired that it be round and full, clinking with the sound of gold. Therefore, I sought every remedy for a lean purse, and I found seven ways to reduce a lack of resources in your life, basically. To you who are assembled before me, shall I explain the 7 cures for a lean purse, which I do recommend to all men who desire much gold. Each day for 7 days, I will explain to you one of the 7 remedies. Listen attentively, listen attentively to the knowledge that I bring, I will impact. Debate it with me. Discuss it amongst yourselves. Learn these lessons thoroughly, that ye may also plant in your own purse the seed of wealth. First must each of you start wisely to build a fortune of his own. Thou be competent, and only then to teach these truths. So what I'm going to teach you, first go apply it, and then you can, teach others. I shall teach you in simple ways how to fatten your purse. This is the first step leading to the temple of wealth. No man may climb who cannot plant his feet firmly upon the first step. We shall now consider the first cure. All right, so the first cure is start thy purse to fatten. The first cure is start thy purse to fatten. Right, to fattening. Akkad addressed a thoughtful man in the second row. My good friend, at what craft workest thou? I, replied the man, am a scribe, and I carve records upon the clay tablets. Even at such labor did I myself earn my first coppers. Therefore, thou hast the same opportunity to build a fortune. Remember, Akkad was also at his very earlier jobs before he met his mentor, whose name I've already forgotten. He was also a scribe, right, where he was earning his coppers. So he's saying, look, I did the exact same job, and look at where I am now. He spoke to a florid-faced man further back. Pray, tell also what thou doest to earn thy bread. I, responded this man, am a meat butcher. I do buy the goats the farmers raise and kill them and sell the meat to housewives and the hides to the sandal makers. Because thou doest also labor and earn, thou hast every advantage to succeed that I did possess. In this way did Akkad proceed to find out each man labored to earn his living. When he had done questioning them, he said, now, my students, you can see that there are many traders and laborers at which men earn coins. Each of them, the ways of earning is a stream of gold from which the work doth divert by his labors a portion to his own purse. Therefore, into the purse of each of you flows stream of coins, large or small, according to his ability. Is it not so? Thereupon they agreed that it was so. Then continued Akkad, if each of you desire to build yourself a fortune, is it not wise to start by utilizing that source of wealth which already has established? To this they agreed. Then Arkai turned to a humble man who had declared himself an egg merchant. If thou select one of thy baskets and put into each morning 10 eggs and take out in the evening 9 eggs, what will eventually happen? Right, it will become in time overflowing. Why? Because each day I put in one more egg than I take out. Akkad turned to the class with a smile. Does any man here have a lean purse? First they looked amused, then they laughed, lastly they waved their purses in jest. All right, he continued, now I shall tell thee the first remedy I learned to cure a lean purse. Do exactly as I have suggested to the egg merchant. For every 10 coins thou placest within thy purse, take out for use but 9. Take out for use but 9. Thy purse will start to fatten at once, and its increase in weight will feel good in thy hand and bring satisfaction to thy soul. Deride not what I say because of its simplicity. Truth is always simple. I told thee I would tell how I built my fortune. This is my beginning. I too carried a lean purse and cursed it because there was not within to satisfy my desire. But when I began to take out my purse, but 9 parts of 10 I put in, it began to fatten. So will thy. Now I will tell a strange truth, the reason of which I know not. When I ceased to pay out more than 9/10 of my earnings, I managed to get along just as well. I was not shorter than before. Also, ere long did coins come to me more easily than before. Surely it is a law of God's that unto him who keepeth and spendeth not a certain part of all his earnings shall gold come more easily. Likewise, whose purse is empty does gold avoid. Okay, I'll break down this whole thing. Which desirest thou the most? Is it this gratification of thy desires of each day, a jewel, a bit of finery, better raiment, more food, things quickly gone and forgotten? Or is it a substantial belongings, gold, lands, herds, merchandise, income bringing investments? The coins thou takest from the purse bring the first. The coins thou live within, it will bring the latter. All right. So the coins that you take out will bring the first, and the first is always, so it's basically breaking down the 10% rule. All right, the 10% rule is, look, man, if you don't honor the 10% rule, that means the coins that you take out, the coins that takest from the purse bring the first. The first being, you'll get some everyday desires. You'll get to buy this, buy that every now and again. But the coin thou livest within, it will bring the latter being substantial belongings, gold, lands, herds, merchandise, income, bringing investments. This, my students, was the first cure I did discover for my lean purse. For each 10 coins I put in to spend 9. So save 1. 1 out of 10 is 10%. So if you're going to spend that money, if you've got bills to pay, pay your bills, but always pay yourself first by taking away 10% and then remain with 9 coins. Remain with 90% of your income. Then he said a funny thing, and trust me, it literally works. You will always make a plan. There was one time in my life where I finally gotten around to being disciplined into holding crypto. Okay, a while back, very disciplined to holding crypto, and things kept happening in my life. Literally, it was almost like a test. Things that required me to basically liquidate what I was hoping was going to be a 3-4 year hold. This was about a while back, right? There were things that kept popping up in my life every time that required funds out of nowhere. And those funds, the only available funds at the back of your mind is your investments, right? The money that you're not supposed to touch, because I was trying to grow and hold. And but because of this, and when he says, now I'll tell you a strange truth, the reason for which I know not. When I cease to pay out more than 9/10 of my earnings, I managed to get along just as well. I was not sure than before. And I promise you, if you ignore the itch long enough to break rank, if you ignore the itch long enough to not be disciplined, if you ignore the itch long enough not to save that 10%, whatever is going on in your life currently sorts itself out. The problem moves on. Your decision rationale moves on. All of a sudden, you can go without. It is not a situation ever. It is never. I mean, you remember in chapter 2, Arkad had to do this for 4 years. He kept failing the test, failing step one for 4 years. You have to learn to hold 10% of any income that comes to you, not just your salary. Someone sends you money, 10% it. Make that a big habit. Do it for 365 days, which is just a year, and see the incredible difference, especially if you're knowledgeable enough to choose good investment vehicles. If not, check out the Academy course so that you can really read 365 Academy course, so you can really learn how to read charts and know what's going to give you your best ROI, return of investment. But as soon as you master this, for each 10 coins I put to spend but 9, right? It's absolutely beautiful, because after year 1 of doing it, in year 2, you're absolutely encouraged. After I saw that happen, definitely started pushing for 20%, 25%, because I finally understood that the concept of building wealth is very different, right? Some people may think it means getting what you want right now, the desires of each day, a jewel, a bit of finery, better remnant, more food, things quickly gone and forgotten. But the true meaning of wealth is substantial belongings, the gold, the lands, the herds, the merchandise, income bringing investments, and that is built by a human being who can be consistent with himself by valuing themselves enough to pay themselves first all the time. You pay yourself first into your future all the time, right? And then he says, if any man proves it untrue, tell me upon the morrow when we shall meet again. So class was dismissed for day 1. QR1 for a lean or small purse is for each 10 coins I put in to spend but 9. So I'm saving 10%. QR number 2, the second QR, control thy expenditures. Now, if you follow my trading channel, I am not a lifestyle coach. And please note, this is no way to say I don't spend money, or we don't do nice things, or whatever it is, or my child, I'm not taking care of my kids, they're going to, it's got nothing to do with that. Lifestyle content trends, right? So if I was looking to grow my followership, I would literally just hire a team around lifestyle content, because it trends. Because if we learned anything from the first book, is that in every single human being there is the desire to do more, the law of perpetual increase, the principles of the advancing man and woman that we spoke about in book 1, that every single person, I mean, if you look at who's got the blue verification symbol on Instagram, it's celebrities. They're celebrities because most of the time they're giving you lifestyle content. They're a good singer. If all it was that they were a good singer, we would just download their music and be happy. Now I want to see what car they drive, how big their house is, want to see how much our monies are contributing. It's a lifestyle thing. And the reason why I'm not a lifestyle trader is because a lot of people fall in love with the end result and not the process. And what I want for 365 students, please, my desire is fall in love with the process. All right. And then you dictate, the lifestyle you want to live. So control the expenditures, which is QR2. I'm pretty sure it's going to touch around those things. Control the expenditures. So some of your members, my students, have asked me this: how can a man keep 1/10 of all he earns in his purse when all the coins he earns are not enough for his necessary expenses? Quite a common question. I'm already not earning enough. I can't save. They already pay me too little. I can't save. It is literally impossible. By the time I get my money, tax is gone, medical aid takes, and then I'm in debt. I can't save. So Arkad addressed his students upon the second day. Yesterday, how many of thee carried lean purses? All of us, answered the class. Yet thou do not, yet thou do not all earn the same. Some earn much more than others. Some have more larger families to support, yet all purses were equally lean. Now I will tell thee an unusual truth about men and sons of men, right? It is this, that what each of us calls our necessary expenses will always grow to equal our income unless we protest to the contrary. This is true, right? So every time you think you've gotten a bit more, when you've started a second side hustle and you're starting to make a little bit more extra money, all of a sudden your expenses, you start to live outside of your previous boundaries, right? So it's actually quite crazy how this easily happens. You just add 10% to your everyday income, and all of a sudden your expenses go up by 20%. Right. Confuse not the necessary expenses with thy desires. Each of you, together with your good families, have more desires than your earnings can gratify. Therefore, are their earnings spent to gratify these desires insofar as they will go? Still, thou retainest many ungratified desires. All men are burdened with more desires than they can gratify. Because of my wealth, thinkest thou I may gratify every desire? It's a false idea. There are limits to my time. There are limits to my strength. There are limits to the distance I may travel. There are limits to what I may eat. There are limits to the zest with which I may enjoy. I say to you that just as weeds grow in a field wherever the farmer leaves space for their roots, even so freely do desires grow in men whenever there is a possibility of their being gratified. Thy desires are a multitude, and those that thou mayest gratify are but a few. Study thoughtfully thy accustomed habits of living. Herein may be most often found certain accepted expenses that may wisely be reduced or eliminated. Let thy motto be 100% of appreciated value demanded from each coin spent. Therefore, engrave upon the clay each thing for which thou desirest to spend. Select those that are necessary and others that are possible through the expenditure of 9/9 of thy income. Cross out the rest and consider them but a part of that great multitude of desires that must go unsatisfied, and regret them not. Budget then thy necessary expenses to touch the 1/10, to not touch the 1/10 that is fattening thy purse. Let this be thy great desire that is being fulfilled. Keep working with thy budget, keep adjusting to help thee. Make it thy first assistant in defending thy fattening purse. Hereupon one of the students, wearing a robe of red and gold, arose and said, I am a free man. I believe that it is my right to enjoy the good things of life. Therefore, I do rebel against the slavery of a budget, which determines just how much I may spend for what. I feel it would take much pleasure from my life and make a little more than a pack as to carry a burden. To him, Akkad replied, who, my friend, would determine thy budget? I would make it for myself, responded the protesting one. In that case, where a packer's budget, his burden, would he include therein jewels, rugs, heavy bars of gold? Not so. How he would include hay, grain, a bag of water, and the desert trail. The purpose of a budget is to help you thy purse to fatten. It is to assist thee to have thy necessities, and insofar as attainable thy other desires, it is to enable thee to realize thy most cherished desires by defending them from their casual wishes. Like a bright light in a dark cave, thy budget shows up the leaks from thy purse and enables them to stop them and control their expenditures for definite and gratifying purposes. This is the second cure for a lean purse. Budget thy expenses. Thou mayest have coins to pay for the of the country, apparently, but I hope you're still with us, right? So basically, cure two is budget. Budget and live below your means. Budget, and live below your means. You always have desires. Right now, you want to curb those desires and join them to the other desires that you can't even realize right now. You want to budget to a point where not being able to save 10% of your income is an invalid excuse. All right. The same way you need to eat, the same way you need to withdraw, breathe in and out, the same way you need to drink water. You must have it as your top priority. 10% rule. Do whatever it takes to budget the expenses that thou mayest have coins to pay for thy necessity, to pay for thy enjoyments, and to gratify the worthwhile desires without spending more than 9/10 of thy earnings. A very important, must-have thing. Right. So the cure. The third cure. Make thy gold multiply. The third cure is make thy gold multiply. Behold, thy lean purse is fattening. Thou hast disciplined thyself to live therein 1/10 of all that you earn. Thou hast controlled thy expenditures to protect thy growing treasure. Next, we will consider the means to put thy treasure to labor and to increase. Gold in a purse is gratifying to own and satisfying. Hey, shake my hand in Botswana there. Blessings, brother. Sorry, on the live, right? So where was I? Next, we'll consider the means to put thy treasure to labor and to increase, right? Gold in a purse is gratifying to own and satisfied, the measly soul, but earns nothing. The gold we may retain from our earnings is but the start. The earnings it will make shall build our fortunes. So Akkad upon the third day spoke to his class. How therefore may we put our gold to work? My first investment was unfortunate, for I lost it all. I lost many, right? I lost it all. It's a tale I will retell later. My first profitable investment was a loan I made to a man named Aga, a shield maker. Once each year did he buy large shipments of bronze brought across the sea to use in his trade. Lacking sufficient capital to pay the merchants, he would borrow from those who had extra coins. He was an honorable man. His borrowing he would repay together with a liberal rental, some interest, as he sold his shields. Cool. Each time I loaned to him, I loaned back also the rental he had paid me. Therefore, not only did my capital increase, but its earnings likewise increased. Most gratifying was it to have these sums return to my purse. I tell you, my students, a man's wealth is not in the coins he carries in his purse. It is in the income he buildeth, the golden stream that continually floweth into his purse and keepeth it always bulging. That is what every man desire. That is thou each one of thee desire. An income that continue to come, whether you work or travel, sleep or eat, etc. Now, great income I have acquired, some great that I am called very rich. My loans to Aga were my first training in profitable investment. So basically, he borrowed his friend, but the bigger picture is he was investing in something that was surely going to pay him back, and it was going to pay him back more compound interest, right? So it was he was getting good, return on that investment. From a few sources at first, from many sources later, flowed into my purse a golden stream of wealth available for such uses. So should I decide. Behold, from my humble earnings, I had begotten a horde of golden slaves, each laboring and earning more gold. All right, each laboring and earning more gold. Okay, so his money is starting to grow until great was the income of thy combined efforts. Gold increased rapidly when making reasonable earnings. Thou wilt see from the following. All right. A farmer, when his first son was born, took 10 pieces of silver to a money lender and asked him to keep it on rental for his son until he became 20 years of age. This the money lender did and agreed the rental should be 1/4 of its value each 4 years. The farmer asked, because this sum he had set aside as belonging to his son, that the rental be added to the principal. When the boy had reached the age of 20 years, the farmer again went to the moneylender to inquire about the silver. The moneylender explained that because the sum had increased by compound interest, interesting, right? There it is, their compound interest. The original 10 pieces of silver had now grown to 31 pieces of silver. All right. And honestly speaking, if you ask me today, face value, what do I think is going to do this? It's pretty much the interface of technology, right? You have to always think, where will be my investments be in 10 years? Equities markets are good. That's old school money. Old school money will always do that stuff. Stocks are efficient. Crypto, tech, blockchain, NFTs, all that stuff that you don't understand, all that stuff that you are scared of, all that stuff that you refuse to learn because in 1996 someone got scammed via Bitcoin. That is literally the ship that keeps rotating around you, trying to put you in and take you to where you're going, right? I don't know how long you can afford to sit by the sidelines, right? But the point is, he found a way. And I'm not saying that's what everyone should do, get into crypto. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. But I would start off with the desire, right? Everything starts with the desire for gold. It's the desire for more knowledge in that. It takes an hour a day for the next 90 days of your life could change you. Just literally Googling blockchain, NFTs, crypto. That's what it is. It's an hour a day of your life during your tea break. Instead of going to gossip with Sally and Susan, just read around where a lot of crypto people think world would be, and then consider they're right. If they're wrong, they're wrong, but consider they're right, and then do the math. 10% of your income, if it was to go there, how much would that be 10 years from now? And then if you're like me, you will have your entire retirement plan completely mapped out, right? But it's up to you. Now, the money lender explained that because the sum had increased by compound interest, the original 10 pieces of silver had now grown to 31 pieces. The farmer was pleased, and because the son did not need the coins, he left them with the moneylender, holding, right? When the son became 50 years of age, the father, meantime having passed to the other world, the moneylender paid the son in settlement 167 pieces of silver. Now, this is back in the days. This is a lot of money. Thus, in 50 years, had the investment multiplied itself at rental almost 17 times. I'll tell you something as well, another soundbite. You can't afford to buy property in this real world right now because it's expensive. I understand that. Right now in the metaverse, property is being bought. Right now, you can't afford a hotel in Santon. You can't afford a farm. You can't afford land. Right now, digital pieces of land are being sold on the metaverse. 10 times cheaper than they are in real life, but will be worth 100 times more than they are in real life. It's not random pieces of land. I am talking about, one day I'll teach on this. Literally, you can literally go into the metaverse, a specific portal, and actually buy specific land, which is the replica of real land on earth, and rent that stuff out right now. The reason for the podcast is I got tired of 3 things. Number one, people thinking they can't read 1 chapter a day. So I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to prove that you can, because you only know what you know. And it is, I also get something out of this because I do this by myself in my quiet time anyways. The difference now is I've got a camera on and a tape recorder on, and I'm doing the reading, and I'm hoping it makes it easier. But also number 2, there's this constant belief, and it's really something I need to work on in an actual academic paper, something around the socialized programming of the human mind and money. All right, and we'll talk about that later on. But a guy called Ken Honda does a good job in his book, Happy Money, right? Our conditioning around money is screwed, especially a lot here in Africa. We need to change that. Number 3, got tired of people just in general complaining about the lack of opportunity, lack of access, which is a real complaint. People are competing for jobs. We look at South Africa right now. It is a terrible place. Almost 40% unemployment rate. There's massive competition for jobs. There are a lack of resources. but there isn't supposed to be a lack of mental power. So that's why we're doing this. Right, so let me get back to the book because I'll just get on and on and on and on and on and on. So the third cure for a lean purse is to put each coin to laboring, that it may reproduce its kind, even as the flocks of the field help bring to thee in the income, a stream of wealth that shall flow consistently to thy purse. So he's saying, look, man, at the end of the day, find out the 10% of that you're putting aside, the one coin out of the 10 coins, you need to put that coin to reproduce its kind. That's like an old school powerful proverb. Like we all reproduce in our own kind. Human beings reproduce human beings. Apples make apples. The only way to make money is to use money because money makes money. Full stop. All right. And shake my hand, Lincoln. Appreciate the comment. Trevor, I see you guys. Thank you so much. They appreciate you. Right. So the fourth cure, guard the treasures from loss. Right. So now we're on the fourth cure for the evening. We are almost done with the chapter. Right. Misfortune loves a shining mark. Misfortune loves a shining mark. Gold in a man's purse must be guarded with firmness, else it be lost. Thus, it is wise that we must first secure small amounts and learn to protect them before the gods entrust us with a large. So spoke Arkad upon the fourth day to his class. Every owner of gold is tempted by opportunities whereby it would seem that he would make large sums of its investment in most plausible projects. Like, for example, most NFTs, about 80 to 90% of them are going to go down to zero at some point in time. Right? Supply and demand. Right now, we are at the early adoption stages. So the markets are just extremely completely being inflated with a lot of supply of this stuff. But at some point, some of them will become terrible investments. And this happens every day. Even the Forex market, you can get a bad investment trade or a bad long-term investment hold in crypto, in stocks. I mean, stocks, we just literally awakened to what was almost a midnight a complete stock market crash where the stock market dropped 18%. This is just generally part of the journey. But he's saying, look, man, you must be very careful. Guard it with firmness, else it will be lost. Thus, it is wise that we must first secure small amounts and learn to protect before the gods entrust with large. Right? Every owner of gold is tempted by opportunities whereby it would seem that he could make large sums by investments in the most plausible projects. Often friends and relatives are eagerly entering such investments and urge him to follow. The sound principle of investment is security for thy principal. Is it wise to be intrigued by larger earnings when the principal may be lost? Right? Is it wise? I mean, you have to think about it. Is it wise to be intrigued by larger earnings when the principal may be lost? I say not. The penalty of risk is a probable loss. Study carefully before parting with thy treasure. And it links to chapter 2. Always go to those who are far much more competent to give you the advice. Specifically, seek advice from those who were competent through their own experiences to give it. You know, in my field in trading, I have seen it so many times. I was a terrible trader for almost 4 years. I lost consistently. I mean, all the time. I don't remember taking significant profit that equated to capital, for example, that was put in over time. Right, I could get by here and there after suffering massive drawdowns. But at the end of the year, if you track my trade at the end of the year for 3.5 to almost 4 years, it was completely terrible. And that's because my source of information about how to approach the market was poor. So if your source of information of where you're going to invest is terrible, you will always run the risk of probable loss. Study carefully before parting with thy treasure, each assurance that it may be safely reclaimed. Be not misled by thy own romantic desires to make wealth rapidly. And I suffered from this. This guy, well, and the sad part about it is that I had this book from the time I was 13 years old, if you follow chapter 1, right? So remember, there are two types of people: those who don't know, don't understand, who have no idea about the laws that govern building of wealth. I have been reading this book for a while. I felt in the other category. I was part of the people who knew this, but just didn't observe the laws, right? So, before thou loan it to any man, assure thyself of his ability to repay and his reputation for doing so. that thou mayest unwittingly be making him a present for thy high-end treasure. Before thou entrust it as an investment in any field, acquaint thyself with the dangers which may beset it. My own first investment was a tragedy to me at the time. The guarded savings of a year I did entrust to a brickmaker named Azama or Zama or whatever, who was traveling over far seas in Troy, agreed to buy for me the red jewels of the Phoenicians, right? And yesterday I probably said a different pronunciation. These we would sell upon his return and divide the profits. The Phoenicians were scoundrels and sold in bits of glass. My treasure was lost. Today, my training would show to me at once the folly of entrusting a brickmaker to buy jewels. Therefore, do I advise thee from the wisdom of my experiences, be not too confident of thy own wisdom. Be not too confident of thy own wisdom in entrusting thy treasures to the possible pitfalls of investments. Better by far to consult the wisdom of those experienced in handling money for profit. You know those traders who think they're going to learn the markets reading PDFs? Yeah, I wish you the best. Such advice is freely given for the asking and may readily possess a value in gold to the sum thou considerest investing. In truth, such is its actual value if save thee from loss. This is then the fourth cure for a lean purse and of great importance. If it prevent thy purse from being emptied once it has become filled, guide thy treasure from thy loss by investing only where thy principal is safe, where it may be reclaimed if desirable, where thou wilt not fail to collect a fair rental. Consult with wise men, secure the advice of those experienced in profitably handling of gold. Let thy wisdom protect thy treasure from unsafe havens. Now we move to the fifth cure. Right, so I'm pretty sure that summary of the fourth cure was absolutely, clear. It's absolutely clear. Now the fifth cure, make thy dwelling a profitable investment. Make thy dwelling a profitable investment. That is cure number 5. If a man set aside 9 parts of his earnings upon which to live and enjoy life, and if any part of these 9 parts he can turn into a profitable investment without the deterrent to his well-being, so much faster will thy treasures grow, spoke Arkad to his class at their 5th lesson. All too many of our men of Babylon do not raise their families to unseemly quarters. Okay, they do not pay to exacting landlords liberal rentals for rooms where their wives have not a spot to raise the blooms that gladden a woman's heart, and their children have no place to play their games except in the unclear alleys. No man's family can enjoy life unless they do have a plot of ground wherein children can play the clean earth, and where the wife may raise not only blossoms but good, rich herbs to feed her family. To a man's heart, it brings gladness to eat the figs from his own trees and the grapes of his own vines, to own his own domicile and to have it a place he is proud to care for. Puteth confidence in his heart and greater effort behind all his endeavors. Therefore, do I recommend that every man own the roof that sheltered him and his. I mean, I always tell people, renting creates such a psychological impact on the human mind. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm awake today, man. And we only got a few chapters left. So let me just give you some soundbite. Do you know what I hope for the podcast? Because I'm one of those people who will tell you upfront my 2-year plan, 5-year plan, without fear of haters. You've seen those Facebook posts. Don't tell everybody your dreams. Everybody, no, I don't care about that. That's not my relationship with the universe. I declare and decree things, I fixate upon them, and nothing stops me. What I want for the podcast is later on down the line, I want it to evolve into an actual anchored show. And I'm using the word show very loosely, where we actually deal with everyday practical financial things, right? Because I can tell you, a lot of people don't understand the psychosis of money or the psychology of money. If at the back of your mind, And if you don't mind, I know some of you are not even traders or listen to this podcast, and I appreciate you. But just because you're not a trader doesn't mean it doesn't apply. If you've got an 8 to 5 job, it definitely applies. If you've got an 8 to 5 job or you're a trader, and every 4 weeks you've got a bill that threatens your livelihood, and that bill is called rent, you are on an incredible ticking time bomb, especially for a trader, because in trading, we don't actually control the markets. I've got 12 amazing pinning orders on one of my 2 small accounts that I'm making out public for traders to kind of like follow in transparency. I can't control the markets. I know one day they're going to get triggered. I still don't know if my analysis is correct on all 12 until they've been triggered and I've been kicked out or I'm profitable. That's number one. That's going to happen in the future. That's no longer my problem. Number two, I don't control when the markets are going to trigger that. What if all those pinning orders get triggered on the 12th of February, but I have to pay rent on the 1st of February? I'm screwed. I'm screwed if I'm starting now. And that's where a lot of people might find themselves. You need your A, B, right? So wealth building is the plan from A to Z. But to get to Z, you need to cover B, C, D, E, F, G. And that was the one thing I always hated about paying rent, was that every 4 weeks, my plans, my goals felt like they hit a comma because you reset. Let's say you've acquired some money in those last 4 weeks of hustling. You now need to leave a portion of that to rent. I am big on people trying to get out of renting. I'm such a big advocate of that. But I'm an interesting advocate because my way out of renting is not always go around and get a home loan, because I absolutely hate debt. I absolutely hate debt. And maybe one day we will talk about the 10 smarter ways, especially for traders or investors in crypto or in assets where you can 100x, 10x. We'll cover those things when we get into the actual practical books. But basically what is said now in the 5th cure is make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. And he's basically saying it's absolutely difficult to start to think and conceive and develop this desire if your current environment is not conducive to that. When you start this journey of building wealth, your surroundings are suffocating, and a lot of people start there. I started there. When you start off by the desire of a goal is triggered by debt, is triggered by your kid being excluded from private school, is triggered by not being able to meet rent, triggered by being evicted. It's difficult, but you got to start where you are, right? The previous book says outgrow your space. That was in the Science of Getting Rich. Become larger where you are right now. Don't always just target the future. Yes, link your goal to the future, but where you are, start to shift, start to become too big for some of these boxes. I used to challenge myself, I'd take my partner because I know her well now. Oh, and I did back then. I knew that she is a beautiful, humble human being, but she also is creative. And so I'm very I have a lot of austerity measures, like in the house right now. I run our entire household on spreadsheets. I know how much it costs for us to live in the world, and I compare that to the income, and I like there to be almost a 200% difference from how much we're spending and how much we're saving. And maybe that's a good thing and a bad thing on my part. It's just part of my psychological psychosis, or rather my sociology with money. All right, the things that I went through to get to where I am created a little bit of fear. So I never want to go back to where I came from, basically, long story short. But during our journey, every year, what we did was we moved out of a flat into a bigger flat, and into a bigger flat, into a bigger flat, into a bigger home. Started renting our spaces, and this is not advice because it was high risk. We got evicted. We lost everything. I'm not giving you advice. I'm saying for me, I had to fully cultivate myself in what I want, and I took the risk. BOY, bet on yourself. I was fully convinced that it was a good call, and I think that's where he's going, right? He's going, some things I learned along the way, but he's simply saying, look, to a man's heart, it brings gladness to eat the figs from his own trees and grapes from his own vines, to own his own domicile, his own home, and to have it a place he is proud to care for, putteth confidence in his heart and greater effort behind all his endeavors. Therefore do I recommend that every man own the roof that sheltereth him or his. And man, this is obvious. The longest thing you're ever going to do in your life is not school. You're going to go to school. If you're like me, you pursued a PhD, you're going to be in university for about 8 to 6, 7, 9 years. That's fine. But the longest thing you're going to do in your life is rent. So if you're not careful and you get fixated in the fancy cars first, which is up to you, it's your money, do you, it's your manifestation. I have no problem with that. I'm simply saying the way I approached it and the way the richest man of Babylon is saying is eliminate immediately lifelong bills. Renting is a lifelong bill. You don't stop renting until you start owning. It's impossible. We can talk about different ways to run real estate. We can talk about how to finance the system. We can talk about getting a loan from here and getting the bank to pay for the house without you having to own the bank. We can talk about third-party systems. We can talk about the game of real estate one day. But I'm saying as a principle, you have to be mindful that when you start to plot the steps to wealth building, you can't do both. You cannot absolutely build wealth while consistently every 4 weeks losing some type of value right from that. So he says, therefore I recommend that every man own a roof or a shelter. And the first home doesn't have to be the grand house, but it is the eradication of that 4-week period, right? You'll know someone is serious in wealth building, or they've reached some level or crescendo, a level when their bills are slightly bigger than 4 weeks. Like I think in quarters now, because everything around me is around banks. Like I enjoy how banks think because banks dominate the market. So I think in quarters. I withdraw from my FX accounts every quarterly. I don't withdraw monthly. You never catch me saying it's end of the month, January. No. January, February, March, literally. Last year's 4th financial quarter, I better have done a good job trading to cover me moving forward. I know my expenses, right? Cure number 4, a guide that treasures from being lost, so my investors are fine. Cure number 3, limit the expenditures. So I never think in that forward. I hate it personally. I'm ranting, man. I'm ranting. Nor is it beyond the ability of a well-intentioned man to own his home. Hath not our great king so widely extended the walls of Babylon that within them much land is now unused and may be purchased at sums most reasonable? Also I say to you, my students, that the money lenders gladly consider the desires of men who seek homes and land for their families. Readily may thou borrow to pay the brickmaker and the builder for such commendable purposes, if thou can show a reasonable portion of the necessary sum, a deposit, right, which thou hast provided for the purpose. Then when the house be built, thou canst pay the money lender with the same regularity as thou didst, as the same way as you paid the landlord, right? He's simply saying, you're already in this payment system, might as well do it, but do it to own and not to rent. Because each payment will reduce the indebtedness to the money lender. A few years will satisfy this loan. So basically the home loan system via lenders is as old as the oldest profession in the world. Right. Then will thy heart be glad, because thou wilt own in their own right a valuable property, and thy only cost will be the king's taxes. Also will thy good wife go more often to the river to wash thy robes, that each time returning she may bring goat skin of water to pour upon growing things. Thus come many blessings to the man who owneth his own house, and greatly will it reduce his cost of living, making available one of the earnings for pleasures and gratification of his desires. This then is the faith cure for a lean purse. Own thy home. So that's cure number 5. Guys, just so we're clear, it's a podcast. I'm just here to talk what I think according to my first reactions when I read. So far, the books we have done, yes, I've read them a couple of times before, but I'll also be doing new books with you. I am not out here dishing out financial advice. What I want the podcast to do is to have a layer of reality, and the only reality that I am an expert of is my own life. So I'm just sharing with you my own life. But it sounds like to me, because you only know what you know, sometimes you think what you want and what you desire is $1 million or $1 million US. then the more you get to know, the more you realize that your desire might have been too small or maybe too big and requires other goals in between to build. And what Mans is saying here is you want the whole wealth game. If you want the whole wealth game, if you want the understanding of building wealth, then one of your first 4 running desires is to own the roof under your head. It doesn't have to be a big roof, but if you can kill that 4-week permanent deduction in your life, if you can wait on the fancy car for Instagram and actually just secure a 3-bedroom flat for yourself that you actually own, then you are slowly but surely curing one of the main things deducting from you, right? Owning thy home. This is cure number 5. Cure number 6, and we are actually almost done with the chapter for today. Cure number 6 is called ensure a future income. Ensure a future income. Now, the life of every man proceeded from his childhood. Now, this is a big concept in my field. I am a social scientist. A lot of people assume I did mainstream economics. No, I did not. I did industrial economic sociology. So my approach to economy is actually from a heterodoxic approach. I believe that economy and society are merged. For example, Karl Marx was a political economist, right? A lot of people don't know that. That man was as brilliant and as sharp as most economists are. He wrote Das Kapital, I think at the age of 24. To be that intelligent, to write a complicated macroeconomic system for the entire world is wild. Whether me and you agree on it is a different story. I personally subscribe to a school of thought called Paracon, participatory economics, which believes that we can get every single person in the economy to make a decision. So when you ask me simple, difficult questions like how do we fix unemployment? Make everyone a trader. 365. 365 Trading Academy, right? Teach everyone this stuff. Literally empower people to why? Because in South Africa, there's about 3 trillion rands in financial markets and only less than 1 trillion rands on the ground for infrastructure, building schools, building roads, creating jobs. The money on the ground to create jobs. My second light is gone because my laptop is dead. So we're just going to work with this. The only money in the country to create jobs is less than 1/3 of the money circulating in the financial markets, because the wealthy in the country I'm in, which is South Africa, most of their money is running investments. The PIC, public whatever fund, like which is the biggest employer, which is the government, employs the most people in any country, which are called civil servants. Civil servants get their pensions deducted to a big corporate called PIC. PIC subselects agencies and companies to hire traders like me to multiply that money. That money doesn't go to pensioners in its totality. They get a slight percent when they turn 65 and they retire. The rest of that money, which is millions and billions and billions and billions of profits, believe you me, stays in the financial sector. So when I say, this is absolutely crucial, you have to really understand how the whole game is built. What Arkad is saying in 1920 was really the foundation of capitalism, which started over 200 years ago. The same macroeconomic systems have continued since then. So when he says the life of every man proceeded from his childhood to his old age, my background will tell you that this is something called socialization. How we are taught about money is absolutely crucial. That's why books are important, because some things were taught from people who don't know any better. You only know what you know. If you grew up thinking to get money, you must work brutally hard, then everything of yours in life will come brutally hard. There are some people, and I was having a cool conversation on one of the YouTube videos I uploaded. Someone asked me a very practical question. He said, look, does the 10% from chapter 2 include provident funds and pension funds? And my answer is no, because I think 3 years ago, I shut down all these useless provident funds I had, and I just ran one under my partner's name. Then I opened a life policy, just some practical small things, just as a must-have. And I was talking to them on the phone. So they had me on the phone. The company is, I don't want to get sued, but why would I? It's Old Mutual. They had them on the phone, and they're talking about unit trust packages and all these things that I had during undergrad, right? Because I was trying to build something in undergrad and in my postgrad during my university days, but I wasn't as faithful. Anyways, long story short, they do some maths and some calculations on the phone, and they're like, look, if you take this package is better, it's like 300 rands per month every month for the rest of your life until you turn like 60 something. And I did the maths because I asked them, what a lot of people forget about provident funds is like those unit packages, the fees are so small. I think it's like 1% or less than 1%. Like, let's say you're running a unit trust. I don't even know why I'm here talking about this stuff. And they're deducting about 300 rands per month from you every month, and it's going to your retirement fund. Your consultant or the person servicing that thing might get like 17 rands, and I know I'm talking in rands, but it's very minimal. But what people don't understand is servicing fees are the most expensive thing in a lifetime project like that. In a 30 to 40 year continuous unit trust, you lose so much money in fees. And by the time the consultant was done, calculating for me how much it would be, I promise you, by the time I turned 65, this was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I was like 20 something. I just turned 31 or 30. I'm not even sure. I turned 31 in December. So I was like 27, 28. I can't remember when the call was, but it was a while back. I was going to get about 1.4 million rands at 65, losing 300 rands every month. Every month. If I put 300 rands, where's my calculator? If I put $10 is about 150. So let's $20. Let's roughly say $20 is 300 rands. If I put 300 rands every month for 1 year, in something silly like Bitcoin, and I say silly because Bitcoin's market cap is massive, so you're not going to get a 10x overnight. Like a lot of people, I'll teach you guys how to read which coins are going to explode. You look at the market cap. You have to be realistic. Can this market cap 10x? Will 10x be the same size as Bitcoin? If the answer is yes, like Shiba, then it's never going to go to $1 until they burn trillions of those coins, right? It's like simple maths, but I'll teach it properly one day. I promise you. I'm coming for everything this year. But if I was to put 300 rands every month in XRP, 300 rands every month in TRX, in Ripple is dead cheap. It's 13 rands a token, and Ripple will win. XRP will dominate. There are already too many banks involved for XRP not to win. Like at 300 rands every month for a year, I could make a whole lot of money. If I do that for 3 years, I could make that million. The same million I was going to get 30 years holding. All right, so it's an immaculate thing to start to reposition your mind. And the whole point of that is the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast is to start to change how you proceeded from your childhood. Right? It's in the Bible. It says, train up a child in the way he should grow, so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. The Jews have a beautiful saying, noted by Bruce Lipton, when he talks about programming the conscious mind. So we've got a 7-year-old, 10 and 8, and a 20-month-year-old, and I started playing hypnosis tapes to my child at the age of 4. Why? Because those hypnosis tapes that you listen to when you sleep at night, the subconscious mind, literally program how you think about yourself. So even if he has a bad day, if parents are not perfect, if we say things that are not good parenting, if we mess up, when his subconscious mind is starting to reconfigure his brain over and over again, you will learn a couple of things from those tapes. You are successful, you are rich, you are wealthy, you are healthy, you are loved, it's a long story. The point is, programming your mind has to be the absolutely important thing. Right? Science of Getting Rich says all wealth comes and ends in how we think. I'm done, guys. No more sound bites until I finish the book. I apologize and I thank you for allowing me to be me. So the life of every man proceeds from his childhood to his old age. This is the path of life, and no man may deviate from it unless God call him prematurely to the world beyond. Therefore, do I say that it behooves a man to make preparation for a suitable income in the days to come, when he is no longer young, and to make preparations for his family, should he no longer be with them to comfort and support them. Right? That's quite, deep, the stuff I hate thinking about. This lesson shall instruct thee to provide in a full purse, so when time has made thee less able to earn. So Arkad addressed his class upon the 6th day. The man who because of his understanding of the laws of wealth, acquireth a growing surplus, should give thought to those future days. He should plan certain investments or provisions that may endure safely for many years, yet will be available when the time arrives which he has so wisely anticipated. There are diverse ways which a man may provide with safety for his future. He may provide hiding place, and they bury a secret treasure. Yet no matter with what skill it be hidden, it may nevertheless become a loot of these. For this reason, I recommend not this plan. A man may buy houses or lands for this purpose. If wisely chosen as to their usefulness and value in the future, they are permanent in their value, and their earnings or their sale will provide well for this purpose. A man may loan a small sum of the money lender and increase it on a regular period. Let me pause there for 2 seconds. Those of you who are actually now into crypto, it's not enough. Take one step further. All right, start investigating API. Start investigating places where you can lend your crypto out. It comes with risks. You could lose it, right? But they're so staking. Some things that I always assume are common sense. I'm always humbled by how much more work I need to do when I realize that they're actually not common, that people genuinely don't know. People keep asking, why do I keep creating more programs? Because there's still more to learn. All right, but your crypto, while you're doing a good job of holding and securing that bag, your crypto could also be making more of its kind, right? There are different platforms where you can move your wallets and you can actually get a serious substantial passive income, right? So you buy and you hold, but we'll talk about that later on. But the point here is make smart investments that take care of your future. All right, a man may loan a small sum to the money lender and increase it at regular periods. The rental which the money lender adds to this will largely add to his increase. I do know a sandal maker named Anson who explained to me not long ago that each week for 8 years he had deposited with his money lender 2 pieces of silver. The money lender had but recently given him an accounting over which he greatly rejoiced. The total of his small deposits with their rental is interest, at the customary rate of 1/4 their value for each 4 years, had now become 1,040 pieces in silver. It's just basic compound interest. All right, basic compound interest. Right. I did gladly encourage him further by demonstrating to him with my knowledge of the numbers that in 12 years or more, he would keep his regular deposit of but 2 pieces of silver each week. The money lender would then owe him 4,000 pieces of silver, a worthy competent for the rest of their life. Now, here's a great investment strategy that has worked for me. I like reading price because I'm now obsessed with perfection. So when I buy an asset, I want to buy low, sell high, and that's important for trading. Also important for investing. But just as a kicker, if you're an investor, it doesn't matter. If you're an investor, today's high is 3 years from now a low. It doesn't matter. So this example of the sandal maker who listened to what he did was quite so specific. I feel like we're unpacking biblical text sometimes. But he says, I know a man, blah, 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 who that each week for 8 years, he had deposited with his money lender 2 pieces of silver each week for 8 years. This is called dollar cost averaging, where I don't care if I'm buying. Netflix just dropped again. I bought Netflix 2020 to be able to buy Netflix, made a whole video about it on Facebook before I even had a YouTube channel begging people to buy. The oil dropped to negative numbers, begging people to try. Dollar cost averaging if you follow our YouTube channel, just look for a dollar cost averaging video I've done somewhere in there. Just type dollar cost averaging 365, you should see it. Dollar cost averaging doesn't care what the current price is. Dollar cost averaging says, no matter what happens, I am going to be disciplined. So look at this now. If you really want to hear the painful truth about being wealthy, you need the 10% rule, where your income, whatever your income is, you put away 10% to make money for you. That's gone. I'm now talking about about part of that 9 out of 10. I'm now talking about that part of the 9. Out of that 9 out of 10, you need to create a dollar cost averaging system where you also consistently, we're not worried that today Bitcoin's at 65,000. You're going to buy there. Yes, in the short run, you look dumb. I understand your pain. You bought at an all-time high. No one taught you. You didn't know. Take our course to learn these things. But you bought at an all-time high. You only lose if you close. By the way, if you close your investment, unless it's a trade, and then you've been kicked out by now, surely. But if it's an investment, you only lose when you close. Because one day, 65,000 is going to be the bottom of Bitcoin. And you know, predictions are all over the place. So I don't want to get into that. But let's say Bitcoin does do about, say, 600,000 US dollars by 2030. That's a generous, very, very, very completely realistic. It may be, even way too long. Like I added many years after that. But that's a 10x from 65,000. Right. So all of a sudden, you're going to look smart because you're going to look like you bought at another big dip. Right now, it's at about 30 something. On Luno, it allows you to rent cost daily or weekly. Yes, yeah. On Luno, I've seen that. On Luno, there's an Ethereum wallet as well that allows you to do some savings. But I'll talk about better platforms to do that too. But yeah, Luno is secure, safe, and it does that kind of stuff. But my point is, this guy was dollar cost averaging. What that means was he was religious that every week he would put away 2 silver coins for 8 years. He just kept doing it. He didn't care that it was worth this much this year and now it's going back down. And then, no, at the end of the day, he just kept dollar cost averaging. When it's going up, he's buying. When it's coming down, he's still buying. Because at the end of the period, it was worth a lot. Back to the book. Surely when such a small payment made with regularity doth produce such profitable results. You have people who want to buy $10 of Bitcoin and then hold it and hope it turns into $1 billion. Regularity doth produce profitable results. No man can afford not to insure a treasure for his old age and the protection of his family, no matter how prosperous his business and investments may be. There's a sad reality in Africa. A lot of people who actually do get good jobs that don't provide pension plans, they don't create their own pension plan. They somehow rely on black tax. We'll talk about that another time. But I promise you, you want to be planning ahead for those days. I would that I might say more about this. In my mind rests a belief that someday wise thinking men will devise a plan to insure against death, whereby many men pay in but a trifling sum regularly, at the aggregate making a handsome sum for the family of each member who passeth to the beyond. This do I see as something desirable, which I could highly recommend. But today it is not possible because it must reach beyond the life of any man or any particular partnership to operate. It must be as stable as the king's throne. Someday do I feel that such a plan shall come to pass and be great blessings to men. Because even the first small payment will make available a snug fortune for the family of a member should he pass on. But because we live in our own day and not in the days which are to come, must we take advantage of those means and ways of accomplishing our purposes. Therefore, I do recommend to all men that they, by wise and well thought out methods, do provide against a lean purse in their mature years. For a lean purse to a man no longer able to earn, or to a family without its head, is a sore strategy. This then is the sixth cure for a lean purse. Provide in advance for the needs of thy growing age and the protection of thy family. Right? If you're a biblical scholar or you're a Christian, there's a verse that says, the righteous man. It's a crazy qualification that my old man kept teaching me. The righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Which means what I have to do personally, the burden that rests upon me as the father of this house, is that yes, I want my 2 kids and my partner to be A-okay. That's fine. This pretty much I live and breathe for them. But my son and my daughter, perchance they have children. I need to create an inheritance for my children's children. And that's generational wealth. A lot of people always wonder how generational wealth is made. Well, it's that perspective, that ability to think and build for that future. All right. Right. So now, and 1 million rands isn't going to cut it. $1 million is not going to cut it. I guarantee you. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and you eat an avocado once a month and you don't get hit by a bus and you freaking vaccinate because of COVID, you could live up until you're 80. What are you going to do then? Right? You need to be thinking about these things. We all do. The seventh cure, the final cure in the chapter, increase thy ability to earn. This day do I speak to thee, my students, of one of the most vital remedies of a lean purse. Yet I will talk not of gold, but of yourselves, of the men beneath the robes of many colors who do sit before me. I will talk to you for those things within the minds and the lives of men which do work for or against their success. So did Akkad address his class upon the seventh day. Not long ago came to me a young man seeking to borrow. When I questioned him the cause of his necessity, he complained that his earnings were insufficient to pay his expenses. Thereupon I explained to him, this being the case, he was a poor customer for the moneylender, as he possessed no surplus earning capacity to repay the loan. It's like getting a job these days. You must have experience to get the job, but to get the job, someone must hire you. You can't get hired because you don't have the experience. You want to borrow money from the bank, you must have borrowed somewhere else to create a credit score. If you didn't create a credit score, then how do they know you can get credit? Well, if you give me the money and I pay you back, then you know I can get credit. I can't give you, it's a stupid game, right? But that's just how it works. What you need, young man, I told him, is to earn more coins. What dost thou to increase thy capacity to earn? All that I can do, he replied. 6 times within 2 months, I have approached my master to request my pay to be increased, but without success. No man, I apologize, no man can often, forgo that. We may smile at his simplicity, yet he did possess one of the vital requirements to increase his earnings. Within him was a strong desire. It's back again, a strong desire. Preceding accomplishment must be desire. Thy desires must be strong and definite. And in the previous podcast, season 1, we now know how to create a strong desire. When we get to the Napoleon Hill collection, there'll be step by steps. But the basic thing is you got to, here's my recorder where I record for the podcast. If I go to folder A, my affirmations are already in there. If I take my phone and I go to my recordings, my affirmations are in my phone. If I turn this camera to my working desk, my affirmations are stuck on my trading desk on my computer screens. The continuous reinforcement of what I want in my life reaffirms me. The more I get that stuff stuck in there, the desire for its attainment becomes a reality. We can get deep and talk about frequencies if you want, but my little brother has a better YouTube channel that deals with all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you now that the desire to want more has to be cultivated. Being broke is not enough to get you to desire being wealthy. If that was the case, 90% of poor people would not be poor, according to these authors anyways, right? I don't want to be stoned here. I'm just simply walking you through these books as given by the authors. But I don't think being broke is a prerequisite or a condition that creates desire. Desire has to be actually cultivated. You have to get sick and tired of being sick and tired of where you are and desperately want more. You can't want more on Monday. According to the science of getting rich, you always have to be at that state of perpetual increase, the advancing man, wanting more all the time by thinking about more. I'll leave it there. The preceding accomplishments must be desired. Thy desires must be strong and definite. General desires are about weak longings. For a man to wish to be rich is of little purpose. I was just ranting, but look at this. It's now word for word here. For a man to desire 5 pieces of gold is a tangible desire with which he pressed to fulfillment. So you gotta be specific. I want $743,500 by the 25th of December, 2022. I'm very clear on that. Whatever the exchange rate will be in ZAR is no longer my problem. But I want $743,500 by the end of December. Okay, so I'm clear on what I want. After he has bagged his desire for 5 pieces of gold with strength of purpose to secure it, next he can find similar ways to obtain 10 pieces and then 20 pieces and later 1,000 pieces. And behold, he has become wealthy. In learning to secure his one definite small desire, he hath trained himself to secure, I keep saying it's almost over, but it really is, to secure a larger one. This is the process by which wealth is accumulated. First, small sums, then larger ones as a man learns and becomes more capable. Desires must be simple and definite. They defeat their own purpose should they be too many, too confusing, or beyond a man's training to accomplish. There's no time because this podcast episode has gone way above time. But Kevin Durant, if I remember tomorrow, I'll talk about this, talks about the score. You have to know the score of your desire. So knowing your score is a simple one, 1 out of 10. What is my faith level? Honestly, when I'm talking by myself, can I really do it? Do I even possess the skill to trade to a point where I can raise 743,000, 500,000 US dollars by the end of the year? Right. And then the answer to that question will then give me a range of my desire bar. No, of my faith bar. That's number one, my faith bar. I believe I can do this 3 out of 10. If that's where my faith is, there's stuff that I need to go work on. Right, I have to build the faith up, sure, but I also have to match my skill set. I have to make sure I am efficient. So when Napoleon Hill talks about automation, reprogramming the mind through affirmations, you have to give something for what you want. So in my affirmations, I say, I want 743,500 US dollars by 2022, December, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, for that amount, what I'm willing to give for that, it's very important that you give. Right, and in the science of getting rich, you can never take from a man in cash value what you don't give you. Whatever you give to that man has to be more than in cash value. In your affirmation for your stuff, the stuff is so far away, man. I have to give something to get that. And I say, to get the 743,500 US dollars, I will be giving of myself to become efficient, disciplined, rule-based trader, right? I list the things that I have to give to become, because if I don't sharpen myself on the gradient, I can't fool myself. Affirmations are not magic. This is not witchcraft. I can't fool myself into believing I'm going to get 743,500 when I know for a fact I'm terrible at following trading rules. I don't give a damn about stop losses and risk management. And once in a while, after 6 winning trades, on the 7th one, I like to go crazy, kamikaze on the account and use a big lot size. I can't fool myself. My mind, my subconscious mind, the most important part of the process brain here that is linked to frequencies in the universe, understands me as a being, my flaws. And so my believability, even though I can affirm it, my believability is affected by my capacity, right? My capacity to contain what it is that I want, right? So the things that so what he's saying in the book, the reason why I'm giving you guys a soundbite is he says, rather train the muscles. Train the muscles. You've got a big goal. You've got 743,500,000 US dollars by 25 December. Let's break that up in financial quarters. Right, in financial quarters, what does it look like? It doesn't have to be in equal parts. Maybe in the first financial quarter, you just need to break through that sweet 100,000 US dollars, Leroy. I'm just talking to myself. Right, just break through it. You'll build a lot of momentum as the year goes by to catch up with the goal. But maybe you first need to attain a small step so that you know you are in alignment with what you're doing. Maybe you're not thinking about it enough. Maybe you're not practicing this principle. First, stress test yourself in small steps. Right. The whole point is when you start to do that, and I'm going back to the book now, in learning to secure his one small desire, he had trained himself to secure a larger one. I always tell people that they are Christians who believe in God but can't faith for 5 rand. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting world we live in, and I don't want to get into all that stuff. I'm just saying, YouTube is being weird there with the network, but we're almost done. This is the purpose by which wealth is accumulated. First in small sums, then in large ones, as a man learns and becomes more capable. Desires must be simple and definite. They defeat their own purpose should they be too many, too confusing, and beyond a man's training to accomplish. As a man perfect himself in his calling, even so doth his ability to earn increase. In those days, when I was a humble scribe, craving upon the clay for a few coppers each day, I observed that other workers did more than I and were paid more. It's a big thing for Napoleon Hill. It's a big thing for the science of getting rich. Right. I observed that the workers did more than I and were paid more. Therefore, did I determine that I would be exceeded by none. Nor did it take long for me to discover the reason for their great success. More interest in my work, more concentration upon my task, more persistence in my effort, and behold, few men could carve more tablets in a day than I. With reasonable promptness, my increased skill was rewarded, nor was it necessary for me to go 6 times to my master to request recognition. The more wisdom we know, the more we may earn. That man who seeks to learn more of his craft shall be richly rewarded. If he is an artisan, he might seek to learn the methods and the tools of those most skillful in the same line. If he laboreth at the law or at healing, he may consult and exchange with others for his calling. If he be a merchant, he may continually seek better goods that can be purchased at lower prices. At the end of the day, whatever you are, be the best at it. I can tell you now, no, there's no time, but no one can outcompete me. No one can outwork me. My consistency and my discipline is my secret work. And the fact that I'm here doing this is to help so many people. But I promise you, I'm also helping me. There's an annoying mosquito in the podcast, in this room, sorry. Right, so it's very, very important, right? He's saying, at the end of the day, you're only going to manifest at your level. You want more, you gotta get to that level of more, right? So it's at the rate at which you develop yourself, right? Always do the affairs of men change and improve, because keen-minded men seek greater skill that they may better serve those upon those patronage that they depend. Therefore, I urge all men to be in front of the rank of progress and not stand still, lest they be left behind. Many things come to a man's life rich with gainful experiences. Such things as the following a man must do if he respects himself. He must pay his debts. Jeez, so important. This was my biggest cross. He must pay his debts with all the promptness within his power, not purchasing that for which he is unable to pay. He must take care of his family, that they may think and speak well of him. He must make a will of record, that in case the gods call him, proper and honorable division of his property be accomplished. He must have compassion upon those who are injured and smitten by the misfortunate, and aid them with reasonable limits. He must do the deeds of thoughtfulness to those dear to him. Thus, the seventh and last remedy for a lean purse is to cultivate thy own powers, to study and become wiser, to become more skillful, to so act as to respect thyself. Thereby shalt thou acquire confidence in thyself to achieve thy carefully considered desires. These then are the 7 cures of a lean purse, which out of experience of a long successful life I do urge for all men who desire wealth. There is more gold in Babylon, my students, than thou dreamest of. There is an abundance for all. Go thou forth and practice these truths, and thou mayst prosper and grow wealth as is thy right. Go thou forth and teach these truths, and that every honorable subject of his majesty may also share share liberally the ample wealth of our beloved city. And that is the end, ladies and gentlemen, of chapter 3 of this book. And like I did say, guys, this book particularly has 17 chapters there, so we won't be mixing 2 chapters in an episode because of how packed they are. This is the most practical steps in it. Tomorrow morning on the YouTube video, in the description box, I will add all this stuff. If you're on Spotify, I'll also add in the description of the episode a quick summary of all this stuff, step by step. Guys, I appreciate you for joining me. Thank you for sitting through this. Thank you for listening. If you're still with me, shake my hand. You know, it's quite late in the night, and I can see there are people who actually attended this whole thing live. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I take special care. 365, man. Good night.